Hello, welcome to Rudy's Common Sense. We're here with another very important episode of Rudy's Common Sense because it's about an upcoming movie that is going to be one of those, like 2000 Mules, like so many others, that will bring out and display the horrible condition of human rights and civil rights that presently exists in this country. Because it will show that a movie, which from all intents and purposes looks to be a very high quality production from a very high quality director and actor and group of actors, is going to be censored as much as possible by those who believe that they run the United States. Those who believe they run our government, those who believe they run our newspapers, those who believe they run our media, those who believe they run our social media, and those who believe they run our businesses. Let's call them the fascist elite of America, which, of course, is integrally combined with the Democrat government of Biden and Pelosi, and also the Democrat governments in the minor fascist states of New York and California and Illinois, and where you have Democrat governors filled with themselves who all of a sudden during the pandemic recognized the strong connection between socialism, Marxism, communism, and dictatorial powers. That's why they govern by mandate. So this movie is going to face that, and we want you to know about it and learn about it from the very beginning. The person we're going to interview, you know him. And you're going to find out a lot more about him, or in some cases you will. Many of you already know quite a bit about him. But you're going to find out different aspects of his personality that makes him, I say this not loosely, a Renaissance man. This is a man who is an actor, a singer, both popular and operatic, a very thoughtful writer and communicator, an intellectual, straight out actor, but also with Shakespearean training, a director of some note, a radio host, and quite a deep thinker on politics and political philosophy. It's Robert Davi, and he's going to tell you his background. No need for me to review that. Since he is a regular guy and a modest guy, let me fill in just a couple of things just so you get ready for him. He was born, as he'll tell you, in Astoria, Queens, which is a Greek-Italian neighborhood of New York, and was then and is now. He was born to an Italian-American family. His mother came from the same part of Italy that my mother's family came from, Avellino. His mother from Nusco, and my grandmother from Gesualdo, and his father from Palermo, Toretto, Palermo. But he grew up in America, American 100%, Seton Hall High School, a Roman Catholic high school in Patchogue, New York. He went to Hofstra College, where he did a lot of study in drama and also wanted to be part of their Shakespeare Globe Theater, which is very well renowned. And he studied under Stella Adler, who was one of the great acting coaches in Manhattan in the 1950s, 1960s. Many of the method actors, the Marlon Brando, James Dean type actors that we know were trained by her. His first movie was Contract on Cherry Street with Frank Sinatra. He's worked with Marlon Brando, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Benicio del Toro, Bruce Willis, Roberto Benigni, everybody you can possibly think of. The movies you'll remember, just a few, are Die Hard, Panther, License to Kill, The Goonies, The Expendables. He appeared in a music video with Bob Dylan. He sung in many different albums, and one, a very famous one of his own, which were really songs of Frank Sinatra, which he did in a very, very unique way, giving rise to massive reviews and a very, very strongly followed, really cult set of songs. I mean, it's an interesting take on Sinatra. It isn't imitating him, but it's evoking him. I remember it from the time that it came out and really appreciate it. You will too. Many other albums. He's been a director. That debut was with the Dukes. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is an actor of great accomplishment. And he has now just completed a biopic movie. And when I tell you the name of it, you're going to see the courage this man has. My Son Hunter. And it's about a fictional, non-fictional version of the Hunter Biden computer hard drive, the one that was lost and was eventually given to me by John Mac Isaacs. So we're going to go to him in just a moment. But I just wanted to remind you beforehand of how many people we need in order to turn this country around, because our back is up against the wall, which is one of the reasons that this movie becomes so important. It's one of the reasons why Patriot Mobile is so important. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian, conservative, mobile phone provider that we have. And they've been on the front lines fighting for our values, like what we're going to talk about today, the value of free speech, the danger of censorship. They were on the front lines fighting for the big change that was made in protecting the lives of the unborn. They were in that fight from the very beginning, or protecting religious freedom, or protecting our right to defend ourselves. Yet, along with that, they are a full-service mobile provider doing anything as well or better than anyone else. The difference is, number one, they're more sensitive to you. They understand we're going through inflation, and they have packages that can help you get through it. And number two, you know that the money that you're spending is going to go along with giving you the service you need to defend our form of government and our way of life. How much better can you get than that? So go to patriotmobile.com/Rudy. patriotmobile.com/Rudy, or call 972-PATRIOT. I think when you hear this podcast with Robert Davi and what's at stake here, and the kind of censorship that goes on, and how deep it is, and the important issues that are raised by even just this one movie, which is one among many that have to be made, I think you'll understand and appreciate what Patriot Mobile does for us. Once again, patriotmobile.com/Rudy, patriotmobile.com/Rudy, or call 972-PATRIOT. And now let's talk to Robert. Well, as I said, we have the great honor of having a really magnificent actor, singer, performer, producer, director. I'd say Robert is everything. Robert Davi is everything. And the minute you see him, you're going to know him, because you've seen him in so many great, great films. You've seen him in television. You've seen him on movies. And now he's involved in a project that, well, I got to ask him how he would do this. Look, his career goes back to the 70s. Here, Robert.
Yeah, 1977, I did my first film with Frank Sinatra.
So this is Robert Davi, originally from Astoria, Queens, the very famous New York Italian-Greek section that voted for Rudy Giuliani when he ran for mayor. That's how I remember them. Best Italian and Greek restaurants around. And the point is, before we go through your history, you've got a long history in Hollywood and movies, and a successful one. You're now doing a project that is that gets you canceled. This is a cancellation project in modern America. He's doing a project about my son, Hunter Biden. All I got to do is tell you the title. You got the point. My son, Hunter Biden. What? I know we're skipping a lot of stuff, but what gave you the courage to do this, Robert? This is more courage than taking on the mafia. I'm telling you.
It is. No, our politicians today.
You and I know that.
Absolutely. Today's politicians are worse, and government is worse than the mafia was.
Yes.
And well, look at what it's a process of seeing how America has decayed over the decades, as you know, Rudy, very well. And the frustration I had in terms of the culture not being, Andrew Breitbart, a great friend of mine, and Breitbart's releasing the picture, they're distributing it. Yeah. And he's always said politics is downstream from culture. And the conservatives, or let's just say the middle of the roads, have never captured Hollywood the way the left has. And as I was watching the Trump presidency and the Roman Senate, the Julius Caesar Roman Senate assassination of him on the steps of the Capitol from the left and the right, the et tu brute, even his friends, no matter what, in the front and the back. And I watched somebody who did, like you have, amazing things for New York. You created the greatest city in the world in New York City, and then during 9/11, and to see what the political process has done and how the media has betrayed the American people and not getting that story out about the laptop, which you were the premier person in terms of discovering it and talking about it, and much to your suffering in certain ways. I know. So watching this unfold and watching the Russian collusion hoaxes that Schiff and Pelosi kept doing, I'm stewing, going, what about this laptop? Now, I trust Rudy Giuliani. This is a man who cleaned up New York, who did some great things for our country and that city. I says, and here he's talking about it, and they want to paint it in a certain way, and nobody's telling the story. So lo and behold, the unreported story group of people came to me with a script. I then read the script and wanted to do different things with it, and they agreed. And I said, this story has to be told, but I want to tell it in an entertaining way. I want to tell it in a way that, of course, people that want to hear the story are going to want to watch this because it's so important. And also to give the humanistic element to it, not to demonize certain elements, for instance, the drug addiction, but to show the full aspect of corruption. So it was, and I say this because you need to know the bona fides. I directed a film that they had seen called The Dukes with myself and Chaz Palminteri and Peter Bogdanovich, that won 9 awards and stuff, and it had a nice tone to it. So I was looking for a project that was meaningful, because I've been canceled. You say canceled. I've been canceled for quite a bit of time because of my outspokenness in writing for Breitbart for many, many years.
Of course, yeah. You were well known from that area, so this wasn't like a big surprise.
No, but I wanted to absolutely say to people, and say to people that are filmmakers, that we have to tell these stories. We have to be courageous enough to get the story out to the general public and to the people that want to hear it and see it, because they'll be shocked and entertained at the same time.
So you started the project when? When did you begin?
I first got involved with it probably April sometime. That's when I first got the script, and then started working.
April of this year?
Of last year.
Okay, so a year and a half.
A year and a half ago, April,
right.
Started working on the script because that's the blueprint. Worked with the writer on the script and the producers, developing, giving my ideas, continuing that process all through October when I went to Serbia. We shot the film in Serbia.
And why did you pick Serbia? Would it have been impossible to shoot it in the U.S.? Would you have had trouble if you shot it in the U.S.?
No, it wasn't a matter of that. It was a matter of locations, being able to find the Ukraine and to find Bucharest and different areas that looked authentic. I wanted an authentic look. And I then searched out for a director of photography, and then all the locations, because we needed to recreate the Chateau Marmot. We needed to recreate Ukraine. And and then the Chinese dealings. So we picked Serbia. We shot there, finished the film in end of November, and it's coming out September 7th. MySonHunter.com, released by Breitbart. You can pre-order it now, and on September 7th, you can download it and stream it live.
Well, if you allow me, I'm going to put it on my website so they can get it there too. Okay? And and I will keep reminding people of it. And as we get closer to it, I'm going to invite you to be on my radio show.
I would love to. You know, and you're a part of the film. You know, I wanted to get you in the film. It was funny because the story is told. We have a terrific cast. Lawrence Fox, who's been canceled in England, who comes from a huge acting family. His father, James Fox,
yes, of course,
did a lot of films with David Lean. He did the performance thing with Mick Jagger, and his uncle Ed Fox,
a fine actor.
Oh, he's a great actor.
But you know, you're Shakespearean trained too. We should tell people that. And you're a bit of a Shakespeare expert.
Yes, actually.
I mean, we're looking at a fine actor here, not just a really, really superb actor.
I went to Hofstra University because they had the Shakespeare Festival, and I got a drama scholarship there. Correct. Because of my love for language, even as an early age, you know. And
when you look at your body of work, it's very, very diverse, much more diverse than the usual actor, including being an opera singer.
Yes, yeah, I started there, and then went into the American Songbook. In 2010, I did Davi Sing Sinatra, which charted at number 6 on Billboard Jazz.
I think most people who listen to a show like this know that one. That's one of the famous.
Gina Carano plays the Secret Service agent, and I've got John James, who does a marvelous job as Joe Biden. Yeah. And not a parody, it's a performance, because that's what I wanted. I didn't want parody. I wanted people to get into the performances, into the reality of what's happening, and also see the humor of it and the pathos and the corruption. So
do you mind giving us sort of a brief outline? Like, where there's so much to do, you had to make choices. I mean, even whenever I tell this story, the biggest problem I have, it's so complicated. You don't know whether to tell one little slice of it because they'll pick it up, but then they might think it's too small. You try to tell them the whole thing. I mean, I have a group of podcasts that go back to when I first found out about it, which is pre hard drive, and I did everything I could. I did a 3-week trial to do it like a trial, so people would see a trial. I did it with my old mafia charts, with Joe as the Don, and the brothers as the number 2 people, and every time I did it, of course, the media sat on top of me. I kept getting canceled from ABC, CBS, NBC. Then Biden wrote a letter. He had the gall to write a letter canceling me, saying I shouldn't be on television. And my final thing left was Fox. And when I challenged the election, Fox threw me off there because you're not allowed to challenge the election. Doesn't sound like America. So how do you frame the narrative? How do you begin it? And
well, it's told through the eyes of a 25-year-old left-wing activist who is working as a stripper to pay for her college loan. And she meets up with Hunter Biden at a strip joint. The night that the father finds out that the laptop has been discovered and there's going to be some noise about it. And then I take us through the journey of his relationship with her and his lifestyle. And she doesn't know who he is at first. And then she discovers, and a gentleman who's put there to be the bodyguard, so to speak, to the parties, is actually a conservative, unbeknownst to people. And he then starts to tell her, wait a second, when she finds out that Joe Biden, she starts to research it. And now we uncover, and it's as if the laptop explodes onto the screen. And
you mean she had known about it?
She didn't know about it. She didn't know who he was.
So the controversy starts about there's a laptop, it's being hidden. The New York Post it comes out through the New York Post, and she's learning about it.
She's learning about it through this bouncer who was a gentleman I hired from Nigeria. He's an athlete, terrific face. And he is the one that educates her and saying, you're looking in the wrong spots. Mainstream media is not going to report on this. And then we start to unfold. So it's an indictment of media, it's an indictment of culture, it's an indictment of politics. And we journey through till finally, when she has the story, the full story, and the Ukraine, because Hunter is confiding in her as they're going through this. And as he's confiding in her, we now go into the reality of the Ukraine corruption, the Russian mafia corruption, the Chinese, all the deals with the secret spy chief of China. And she tries to get a reporter to write the story. And he refuses, of course. And she's frustrated, lost. And she gets a tweet from a gentleman called Rudy Giuliani. and that's toward the end, that breaks the whole story. And then it takes another turn, which is quite interesting.
I don't want you to tell us this. I mean, it sounds like a fabulous movie, just as a movie. Probably if we saw it 20 years ago, we'd say great science fiction or great fiction, but that could never happen here. I mean, how many movies did you say that about years ago? Over the 7 days in May, when the generals sought to take over the country, you'd say, oh, that could never happen here. It's amazing. What you have on did happen here. Now, putting your other hat on, because you've also been a radio commentator, a writer, very thoughtful about politics, and now you've had a chance to deal with it from a fictional point of view. How did this happen to us, Robert? How did this happen to us?
You know, I've got 8 kids from different decades, the youngest being 3 years old. Now, I grew up, of course, I was born in the 50s.
Right.
So I remember my own educational process. And my dad was a Knight of Columbus, a hardworking Italian Sicilian, 3 jobs. And he never talked, and my family would talk about, I had an uncle who was a Buckley conservative, and some of us were Kennedy Democrats at the time, but we were always,
like me,
like
me
you,
at that time,
exactly.
right?
And we always talked about politics at the kitchen table.
My family too, same thing.
We always discussed it. Me and my cousin used to do, like before Saturday Night Live, funny political commentary. And so my dad brought home a book, 2 books. One was called None Dare Call It Treason by John Stormer, and another book called Masters of the Seat by J. Edgar Hoover. He says, read these books that the Knights of Columbus had recommended, I guess. And I must have been 9, 10, 11. I read these books, and it was, like you said, science fiction. And how it was going to be there was a plot to infiltrate the United States of America in many, many different ways. And I thought, yeah, all right, this is interesting. But then over the decades, things would happen. You know, you had Bill Ayers in the Weather Underground, where Bill Ayers' whole thing in the 70s was on his website. He said he wanted to create a whiting force with the Black Liberation Movement to bring down American imperialism, colonialism, and institute world communism. Think of this. And that guy went from blowing up the Pentagon and precincts, and he became an educator, infiltrating the textbooks. Now, I'll go back a little bit to 1940s with Ronald Reagan.
Right.
I think you know this. And also in the 20s, Lenin and Stalin, they knew that America had to have useful idiots, and they spent a lot of money infiltrating the United States with different people. Even in Roosevelt's Treasury Department, there was a communist. As I've heard John Brennan, I don't know if it's true, was a member of the Communist Party at one time. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Right.
that was a rumor.
Wouldn't be surprising if it were true.
If it were true. Anyway, so, and people go the Red Scare and everything else, and I understand that. I understand we're sensitive to all of that. Now, the Ronald Reagan, there was an actor called William Holden, and it's a great movie called Network. Remember that movie, Network?
Great movie, great acting performance too.
And it's also very prophetic. It prefigures Antifa in that film. If people see it today, it's amazing. Network.
And
Watch that film.
Yeah.
It absolutely says what the media was going to do. It shows you. Patty Chayefsky was an artist, and anyway, Not to,
That's the one with I can't take it anymore.
yes, Peter Finch. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it any longer.
Right,
And
right.
and he
Yeah.
talks about the media, and there's the whole thing that Ned Beatty does at the boardroom about the media. It's one of the most important movies to watch.
About 30 years ago, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So now what happens is you have William Holden tells Ronald Reagan that there's going to be a party at Ida Lupino's house, a meeting of the Communist Party talking to Hollywood elites in 1946. Ronald Reagan goes to this party or goes to this meeting, and he wants to speak, and he gets shouted down. And there was one actor who stood up and said he deserves, we should hear him. We don't have to agree with him, but he has the right to speak. This is America. That actor was John Garfield.
Another great actor. Short career, but great actor.
Well, he died because of the pressure of what the left was doing to him,
Great
among other
actor,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. So they took him aside and berated Garfield. Reagan spoke for about an hour or so to boos and harisses, but he kept going. And years later, Sterling Hayden, who played the police captain in The Godfather, who punches Al Pacino,
Also in Dr. Strangelove, the crazy general in Dr. Strangelove. The water, they're poisoning our water.
Kubrick. So Stanley Kubrick. Sterling Hayden says years later that Ronald Reagan was a one-man wrecking crew of the Communist Party in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And now, so as we've seen what's happening to our country with, it's the sign points. So you have to say to yourself, what's going on? And the kids are not educated today. It's so amazing to me that the lack of education and the lack of history and lack of classics. So the critical thinking skills of the children, they're like even common math, right? They're made to be the collective, not the individual anymore.
Well, Robert, this the point of asking you these questions, aside from the fact of educating my audience, is it shows that the person who did this film has a wealth of intellectual background and substantive background of what's going on. I mean, I came to this realization probably 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, you'd see all these changes in America, like the ones you're talking about, and you'd say, how could that happen? How could that happen? How could that happen? And then all of a sudden you start to realize there's a common thread running through this. So I go back to Saul Alinsky, who trained Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, trained them. And he was a pure communist. He tried to hide it, but he was a pure communist. And if you look at their schedule for taking over a country, that we are following it letter for letter, word for word. Biden, I have done podcasts that I call Express Train to Socialism, Express Train to Marxism, Express Train to Communism, which is what I think we're on. And I think that this movie will be a big, big contribution in shaking people up.
I hope so, because they have to know the story and they have to see the corruption that's involved, or the alleged corruption. The other thing, Rudy, is that when you think about what's happening to our nation, I wrote an article years ago, I think 2010, of teaching our children red, white, and blue. And it was in response to that. They have an Earth Day on Nickelodeon, which is good. I'm an environmental guy. I don't know what's causing this or what's causing that. I'm not going to get into that. There is an issue. And my frustration is both sides kick the can down the line. They don't know how to. And I'm going to give you an idea. I'd like to see what your feeling is on this, because it's important. And it's important for the conservative movement to understand how they can triangulate certain issues that the youth are being indoctrinated to without sounding like they're part of the scope trial and out of touch with whatever reality might be. So the idea of it is this, that they have a Earth Day, but they've not had a memorial on Nickelodeon where the whole day is represented about the great accomplishments of America and our military. We don't have that. When Trump was elected, I wrote an article the week he elected, echoing Ronald Reagan's last message to the American people. The last part of his speech as he stepped down was that we need an informed patriotism, which is what you're doing on your show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we need to have that because we're going to lose our youth, which is what's happened. Now, you know the girl Greta in Sweden?
Sure.
Okay. Let's not argue if it's caused by carbon emissions or whatever it's caused by. Let's just say something is happening in the environment. And there is a certain amount of the population that is saying, and people saying, that this is going to be bigger than World War II. It's a bigger existential crisis, bigger than World War II. Okay, let's take them at their face value. So I don't understand. If I was a politician and I came up with 5 pages called the Earth Force, if this is going to be the biggest existential threat to the United States, why don't we have an Earth Force? Why don't we have a mandatory draft, 18 to 21, 4 to 6 years, where they're taught reforestation, toxic mishaps, relocation, building home, new green technology. Let's the youth, instead of the youth lying on the streets screaming and painting their hair pink, let's draft them for the Earth Force and let's protect the planet.
Right.
And then they'll get free education and health care. But let's put up where we're going to say.
And let's see if that happens. Well, I think that's a fascinating way of raising the issue and seeing how much they really support it, how much they really support the intensity of it. I mean, I'm similar in what you're thinking, except I think that we spend too little time trying to figure out how to adapt ourselves to these changes than we do affecting the changes, because I'm not certain that us poor little humans on this tiny little part of that gigantic universe we're in can have too much of an impact. But we sure have been very good as the Earth changes, adapting. We're brilliant at adapting. And we should give at least equal attention to that, because even our best efforts may fail. And then we have to be ready for more flooding. Well, we can deal with more flooding. We can deal with more dams, with better dams, more site. Plus, a warmer universe means more food. So let's take the benefit of that and try to minimize the dangers. But I agree with you. I don't think conservatives should ignore it. I think they should have a positive, logical, sensible approach to it.
And that's where the Earth Force comes in, because you have to then hold the left, the youth, and the right accountable for an existential crisis bigger than World War II. Right. And if it is, why isn't there a draft for the Earth Force where we're being able to prepare ourselves for the inevitable, if it is or not? At least it's going to be better for society. It'll get kids. For every 60 applicants in the inner cities for the armed forces, 59 are rejected. There are 20 suicides a day in the military, retired military personnel. Take those gentlemen and women, have them become part of the Earth Force, get these kids off the street, off of fentanyl, off of gangs, off of ne'er-do-wells, the prisoners. People have, all right, you don't want to go to prison, you go into the Earth Force. I mean, and this to me is being able to triangulate an idea. It helps many different issues on a different way. And I would, and if someone, took that idea and said, "Hey, this is a platform," I bet you it would get a lot of traction, because how do you attack it?
Right, absolutely. And it also requires people to decide how serious they believe this really is and do more work on it, because this is a big commitment in your life. It's a big, big commitment. Well, Robert, you've got so many more movies in you, my friend, that are of tremendous. I can think of 10 as we're sitting here. But let's go back before we conclude.
Series on Giuliani.
We'll do that too.
Your career is so extensive.
I'd love to see someone do a serious thing that shows how this progressed, going back to the Marx and the Russian Revolution, and how over a period of time, very, very patiently, with much more patience than we have, they corrupted us. Yeah, it's a brilliant thing they did when you think about it. It's evil, but brilliant.
One of my political mentors was David Horowitz, as well as Andrew Breitbart. But David Horowitz wrote a book called Radical Son. David Horowitz, and I always felt that could be a good film, because Radical Son, His family was communist. He was a communist. He was part of the Black Panthers. He was on the inner sanctum of it all and saw what was going on. And now you have the progression of this man who's a lefty becoming a conservative and a big conservative thinker.
Yes. Yeah. And a big
So that kind
big
of film that you just said, to be able to map out exactly what's going on in a theatrical way. See, the left had done so many stories about the blacklisting, right? So many stories. And then you find out that 90% of the people, when Daniel Patrick Moynihan let the Venona Project be made public in 1996, that a lot of these people were communists in the United States.
Right? Yeah, I know.
Think about it.
Well, we'll get into that because
They're taking patriots and making patriots the criminals.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Boggles the mind.
Well, we need you and we need this film. Tell us again.
My Son Hunter. Go to mysonhunter.com.
I went to IMBD before. It's already there. So what can you do right now? You can pre-order it.
You can pre-order it. mysonhunter.com. It comes out September 7th. You can download it and you can stream it. And again, like I said, America is angry. We mentioned the Peter Finch. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it any longer. This film was crowdsourced because Hollywood and the media will not tell it. And there's a lot of people out there angry. They are angry and upset.
So people can pre-order it now, but you can't see it until September 7th.
September 7th.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to keep talking about it every day until September 7th. We'll have you on the radio show, and we'll be back to this before September 7th because this is important for our children.
In the thing, the story breaks because of Rudy Giuliani.
Well, it was my obligation, and God bless you.
God bless you, sir.
Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code Rudy. Well, I couldn't have been more impressed with that interview, nor can I wait. I tried to get it during the break. All I got was IMBD. I got on there and they put me on a waiting list. I'm going to see if I can call Robert later and say, hey, Robert, you got one like you can send me? Like, you know what I mean? It would be like when we were back in Brooklyn in Astoria, Hey, Robbie, you got one for me? That kind of stuff. I don't know. Sometimes they have like a copy for review so that when it comes out, you can have seen it already and have written the reviews. I've done a few of those. I think he would give it to me because I think he thinks it would get a pretty good review. I have seen some excerpts. I do have to admit that I'm not allowed to show yet. And as soon as I can, I will, if I can show them before. So you get a little preview on this. But we're going to try to get it on our website also, so we can have you be able to get it as quickly as possible and for the best price. And also, we're going to have commentaries on it as we move along, because it isn't strictly factual, but from what I can tell from the excerpts, it's right there. I mean, it condenses two characters into one, or you know what it does do, I think. I should wait on this, But I think it accomplishes what I've tried to accomplish, but it's very, very hard when there's so much material to deal with. And then, of course, the media wants to do it its own way. This is not the Hunter Biden case. This is the Joe Biden case. This would be like saying that the John Gotti case was the Sammy the Bull case. The boss here is Joe. When Robert expresses some empathy and sympathy for Hunter as an addict, I feel that also. Now, I've always felt, of course, I get very angry at Hunter when I go through the hard drive and the computer, and I've kind of feel like I've lived with him for hours and hours and hours and hours. And I do feel a certain sympathy for him. It's hard to feel it when some of the things that he does and the vicious way in which he treats women and the suggestions, that some of the pornographic things you see there with the interest in underage children. It's hard, it's hard to understand what that's all about, whether that's him or somebody else in the family. But in any event, my ultimate conclusion is he's not the real top villain here. He's taken the fall for the big guy. This is the head of the family is Joe. The bulk of the money went to Joe. The offices being sold were Joe Biden's. I think this movie is going to make that pretty clear, as does everything in the hard drive. So we got a few weeks to go to the movie, and we'll be doing everything we can to try to make sure it doesn't end around the Iron Curtain of censorship, which we have to do every day, every week, and my colleagues do. And for that, someday I hope they get great recognition as the true journalists of the early part of the 21st century. Well, we'll be back in a day or two with another podcast of equal merit, God willing, and keep your eye out for My Son Hunter. Thank you, Robert Davi. Thank you to my very, very loyal audience. And thank you for being loyal Americans. God bless America.